and welcome to Romantasy Readers Podcast. My name is Nicole, and as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Ali, on this very special day. Just so you know, guys, we are actually recording this episode on Christmas Eve, my time. Christmas Eve, Ali's time. But we're in celebratory mode anyway, and especially because we are doing our ONYX STORM countdown and our Fourth Wing recap today. Very important, very exciting episode. So we cannot wait to get into this and go back over Fourth Wing and bring this to you guys. But starting, Ali, how are you going? How have you been?
I've been well. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm feeling super excited that we're really truly in like ONYX Storm countdown
I
mode.
know.
I feel like I needed to take a little bit of a break from it because it was just like all I was thinking about,
Yeah.
and I like needed to kind of set it aside
Mm-hmm.
and like fall in love with some other characters and other books. But now that we're like less than a month away, I'm incredibly excited
You
and
allow
stoked.
yourself to get excited again. I know. I feel
Yeah.
like I had to let it go a little bit because I
Yeah.
was in this place of I was almost overwhelmed by Fourth
Right.
Wing and Iron Flame, and then we had House of Flame and Shadow. We had all these books, and then I almost went into depression, I think. Kind of was like,
Yeah.
what now? And thank God some amazing books came out like Quicksilver and some other awesome books. We were able to just fall back in love with just the general romantasy books and not the big epic
Yeah.
ones that we lose our minds over.
Yeah, and I feel like I healed just in time for my soul to be ripped open again from ONYX Storm. So, like I feel like right now I'm in a place where I like have a healthy relationship to Fourth Wing and
Yep.
ONYX
You've
and
healed enough
Iron
that
Flame
you can take yourself
and
back to
Jade
that
and Violet.
place.
Yeah, and then it's just in time for me to read ONYX Storm and then go back into obsessive mode. So,
Honestly, I rereading Fourth Wing for like the 9th and 10th time that I've done in the last week. Liam hurt all over again. It was just as hard. As a matter of
oh,
fact, it was more heartbreaking also because I was doing the audiobook. And then it's like I'm just crying and I'm just like, this is hurting just as much as the first time. I don't feel better
yes.
about this.
Yes, I know. I'm so happy that I don't have to, like, just so listeners know, Nicole kind of did the reread deep dive of Fourth Wing, and I'm doing the reread deep dive of Iron Flame. And it's like
Better
sometimes
in
I'm
the
like, did I
end.
get the better deal? Did she get the better deal? I don't have to relive Liam, but I also don't get to like, I didn't do as quite a much of a deep dive
You
as
have
Nicole
like
did to reread
300
Fourth Wing.
additional pages you have to
Yeah.
read.
Well,
I
I'm
really
gonna
love the better
listen.
end
I'm
now.
listening this time. I actually have not listened to the audiobook of Iron Flame. I only listened to the audiobook of Fourth Wing on
Mhm.
like my third reread, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to do it. But there's not a graphic audio yet for that one. So that's the
Yes.
only bummer.
I know. We'll just have to wait and see. But look, what we're going to bring
Mhm.
you guys today is we're going to bring you firstly a bit of a summary of Fourth Wing. Maybe you haven't read it. Maybe you just can't be bothered. Maybe you just can't bring yourself to go back and experience Liam all over again. So we're going to give you a bit of a recap and we're just going to talk through that because let's be honest, like summaries are not my forte. They're not my strength. So I'm just going to talk through it and Ali can jump in along the way and we can just like share theories as we talk about it. We're then going to talk about, I guess, some theories we've pulled from that. We're going to deep dive a little bit into chapter 1 and explore the Easter eggs because I think, and speaking to so many authors, like we have so many leave Easter eggs in the first chapter for the
Yeah.
whole series that they want to bring back and go, it was there in the first chapter. So we're going to deep dive into that and look into that for you. And we're going to end with just a few questions and thoughts and everything we can kind of take from Fourth Wing in preparation for what we might be getting in ONYX Storm and beyond. So
Yeah. And since it is Christmas Eve, we are both enjoying a beverage,
a
which
beverage.
means who knows by the end of this, who knows how coherent we'll be.
This
We'll
could get
find out.
really messy really quick. I've actually never tried this before. I bought these because you know when it's Christmas and you just like, you
You
just
can
you just
try
start
new
just
things.
buying.
Yeah,
I got these.
totally.
It's like the hard solo lemon lime and bitter, zero sugar though. So I was a bit
Nice.
like, so I don't have to feel too guilty. But yeah, we'll see how we go. I could get could get a little obliterated throughout this. Hence, I'll try and get the summary out first so that by the time I get to the
Yeah, good
question,
idea.
it could get a bit loose. But just fair warning, guys, maybe go get your own beverage so that you can join us in this.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Pause right now and go get a beverage.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Quickly, because we always do this, is there anything you're reading currently that you want to do a shout out for before we jump into our fourth wing?
Okay, I have read so many things lately. I have been finally reading again, but most like I finally like I am still occasionally reading hockey romances, but I am finally like dipping my toe back into the water of fantasy.
Wow.
I read Nocticadia.
Yes.
So good. I
So
loved
good.
it. I will never question you again. I was like kind of questioning when Nicole's like, you have to read this, you have to read this. I started it and I was like, I
I know, and when you
don't
messaged
know.
me, and I was there because she'd read like the first chapter or two, and it kind of starts as a bit of a, it throws you back like a few years, and she's like,
Yeah.
I don't know about this. She's like, this is really weird, the first two chapters, and I'm there going, what are you talking about? And then I remembered, oh wait, there's a bit of a prequel bit at
Yeah.
the start. I'm just like, just keep going, it's gonna get really good, I promise.
Yeah. And then I read Nocticadia and I kind of got in the mood for like that spooky dark
Yes,
academia. Like I
yes.
wanted like it was like I was into that. So then I went and read Phantasma, which I've seen
Oh
and has been
yes, I've
really
seen that.
popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. And it's like standalone, which is I feel like this time of year, especially in prep, like as I'm like prepping emotionally for Onyx Storm, I need standalones. Like
Yeah.
I don't have the emotional energy to take on like a whole like a series. So
Yeah.
Phantasma, it was really good if you're looking for something that's kind of like spooky dark academia, but is also a standalone romance, like all
Mhm.
wraps up in one,
Yes.
you know, nice and like cozy, no heartbreak at the end. I really liked that. Have
Yeah.
you been reading anything
Well,
other
I
than
have
Fourth Wing?
literally been committing to fourth wing because for me, if I start reading something new, I'm going to get into it and then I will not do my homework. So I just had to be like, I'm just committing to fourth wing. But obviously, I read Nocticadia, which I loved. And I've got Anathema, who is also by Kerry Lake. And I've heard so many great things about it. And I started it and it just starts with like, you know, the contents page where it just tells you all the different like,
Oh yeah.
and I'm just instantly like, I'm going to love this. I'm going to love it so much. But I've
Yeah.
put it to the side because I can't do it until I've done all my fourth wing stuff. Right now, I'm in
Yeah.
fourth wing, Iron Flame. And once we get past this, then I can go and reward myself with a new book. But for now, I am living and breathing fourth wing. So I'm going to bring it to you guys. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for my horrible, terrible summary? I'm setting no expectations. Set
It's
your
gonna be great.
expectations extremely low. I wrote this on my phone with my fingers and autocorrect and stuff. So it will probably be terrible, but I will do my best to give you a summary of Fourth Wing. Not that I will say, I feel like Fourth Wing, for anyone that has read it, it's a pretty straightforward book. It's like a movie. It's literally just action
It
after
is.
action after action. Most of us can go through and we kind of know the basic summary of what happens. And there's obviously lots of little innuendos along the way that might be little hints and Easter eggs for future books, but it's just super entertaining. And I think most people will know the general summary of what actually happens in this book.
Mhm.
But just in case,
Yeah.
I will give it
Just
to
in
you now.
case.
All right. So we start with Violet and Mira and her mother discussing that Violet is being forced into the dragon quadrant and becoming a dragon rider. Mira obviously helps Violet, whose mum is insisting that she must go there and she cannot become a scribe. And she lightens her load and gives her some sisterly advice, giving her new clothes and a dragon scale vest that she had specially made, as well as riding boots that have additional grip to help her get across that parapet, which seems like a really obvious thing to me. Like when they're like, oh, I was wearing
Yeah.
really slick, like boots. It's like that just sounds so, who would think that was a good idea? You know what you're getting into. Even Rhiannon, that's been like preparing for this for her entire life, you didn't think to go get some grippy like
Really good
bloodstone
grippy
boots.
boots.
Like,
I know. That's so silly.
but
And I
anyway,
like Violet, I remember Violet is trying to carry like
all her
12 books or something with her. And Mira is like, "No,
mm,
get these books out of here." I love it. Violet's a girl after my own heart, you know, she's about
I
to,
know.
like, risk her life so that she can carry extra books with her.
100%. And she really could have done with that Fables of the Baron. She really could have done with that in her rucksack. But look, it kept her alive. So we're happy for now. She can get that at a later date. So, when Violet is going to the parapet, she meets her future best friend Rhiannon and realizes
Yeah.
that she has slick boots and that she needs to swap one. So, this instantly bonds them. There's also some other guy, but he dies, so there's no point talking about him.
No.
We
Yeah.
then meet Zayden, who is, of course, our dark, beautiful shadow daddy, who instantly takes Violet's attention. And then she realizes that he is her mortal enemy and they both hate each other and he probably wants to kill her. But he allows her to cross. Oh, yep. Okay, jump in, Alice.
I wanna say something here, all
Mm,
right? Because
mm,
it's really stood out to me as I went back and I reread chapter 1. I did not reread everything, just chapter 1.
mhm,
Um, Now that we know that Xaden can read intentions,
mhm.
like, how does that change that whole scene for
Oh,
you? Like, it really kinda changes the scene, like, d how much, because Violet initially is like, "He's the most attractive, beautiful man I've ever seen." Like,
hot.
how much of that is he, like, gleaning? How much is he not? Is he gleaning, like, that Jack is gonna try and kill her? And so, like,
Mhm.
is he already protecting her in that scene, like,
Well,
somehow with Jack?
we actually know now from Iron Flame that he had been instructed by her mum to protect her right from the beginning. So he
Mhm.
actually was looking out for it. She just had to get her ass across the parapet. So apart from making Jack hold back a few places, like he possibly could have pushed him back a little further to kind of make sure he wasn't going to throw her off. But other than that, he was already sort of looking out for her, and we didn't know that yet. But
Yeah,
it was quite
yeah,
funny to me because she saw him and she just went, "Holy shit, that is the hottest man I've ever seen in my life."
yeah,
And
yeah,
he
and I don't know
possibly
if there were any intentions that she had in that moment, but it's just fun to think about, like, what intentions might have been, like, conveying themselves to him.
I know, I know. Okay, so there is a storm that starts to fall as she crosses the parapet, which I think is just a really interesting little call out for, I don't know, just a variety of reasons as to why a storm seems to happen right as she's crossing. And we meet
And
Jack
also,
Barlow
why would her mom not,
clearing
like,
the storm.
again, it's like, why would her mom not stop the storm?
I know. Yeah.
She clearly could. Is her mom the one that started the storm right as she's crossing?
I know.
Like,
It's like, isn't that more
it's
dangerous? Like, you want to make sure your daughter survives. Like, it's, I can't understand if she made it for like Jack Barlow and she was trying to like knock him off. But I don't know.
yeah.
Has her mum ever actually cleared a storm though, or has she only created storms?
I guess we don't know for sure. I don't think we
Mm,
know if General Stormgale was able to, like, clear storms, so
yeah,
maybe
she can
she wasn't
eliminate
able to clear
them.
them. But I just think it is interesting is all I'll say. I
Yeah.
don't that it's a storm that makes it hard for her to get across, and we know that her mom is connected to that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Violet survives, gets across the parapet, as does Jack. And we then meet Dane, who worries about her and tries to make her move to the scribe quadrant. Trying to use my pronunciation while drinking alcohol does not work well. Okay, we find out about Violet's health issues, that she has weak bones and ligaments. But anyway, they strap her knees, and Violet goes back, and she's put into second wing. But Xaden goes and has a chat to a few people, and then she is moved under him into fourth wing, which Violet is very concerned about because at this point she thinks that Xaden is out to kill her. We
Yeah,
then meet the dragons, and Violet, in spite of these dragons being terrifying, she holds her ground, especially with the blue dragon. Even though she's quite scared and she knows she's weaker than everyone else, she still stands her ground and tries to act brave. She attends her first mat session and she has to fight Imogen, who has pink hair, who tries to kill her because she is one of the marked ones. But Violet's vest saves her, and Imogen instead breaks her arm, and Violet has to go and get it mended. I think this is a really interesting scene because obviously, firstly, Zayden's meant to be protecting her. How does Imogen get through that to the goer? Like, she tries to kill her. Like, she really
yeah, yeah.
intentionally does that. And Imogen is a really interesting character to me because I've since heard this theory that Imogen may actually also have the silver hair, the same as
Mhm.
Violet. And I am now really behind that theory. And I wonder what intention she had at this point, with what she was doing with Violet. I know. What are your thoughts on this?
Maybe, and, like, maybe there's more, maybe it seems like on the surface she's trying to kill Violet, but maybe not. Maybe she's trying to, like, if Imogen also has silver hair and is somehow connected to Venom or whatever we think the silver hair indicates. Maybe Imogen is actually just trying to like suss her out and see how much power she has. Like
Yeah.
maybe she's not actually, it seems like she's trying to kill her, but she's trying to like see if her power, whatever power they
Yeah.
may both have, is like if it can come to the surface or something. Because I'm with you. I'm very into the idea that Imogen has silver hair as well, and that's why she always colors it. But
She
could be
keeps it.
wrong, but I really like that
Well,
idea.
yes, and I'll talk about it later, but there is also special mention of her pale green eyes, that she has pale green eyes, and
Mhm.
Violet has, like, pale, sort of hazel eyes, from what
Mhm.
we pick up. So there's that pale factor. So I don't know, I think
Yep.
there's something very interesting. Imogen is a very interesting character, and keep an eye on her. So Violet has gone to get mended. We learn that mending is very painful, but Violet is still very stubborn, and she is insisting that she stays in the writer's quadrant, even though Dane is trying to get her to go and be a scribe. I think at this stage we love Dane's really nice at this point. Like he's very like he's kicking the door down, he's trying to protect her, but
Yeah.
he's also like go to the scribe quadrant, and she's like I don't want to go there, and he's like no you have to. So that's kind of the complicated relationship we have with
Yeah.
Dane at this stage. Violet goes back to her room and gets the Book of Brennan, which Mira leaves behind for her. And we
Mhm.
learn, she finds out how to find out who she's going to be fighting on the mat.
Yeah.
And she devises a plan to poison her opponents. So she goes out to obtain ingredients where she stumbles upon Zayden and the marked ones in a group of more than three, having like a meeting. But she finds out that they're really just giving advice to the first years and helping them. So she decides that she won't tell Dane about what she's seen and keep it a secret. She thinks she's gotten away with it, but just as she climbs down from the tree, Zayden is behind her and is all like, tell me why I shouldn't kill you right now, which of course is quietly like really, really attractive.
Yeah.
And they have a moment where she throws knives at him and misses him narrowly, and she confirms that she will keep his secret. He agrees he won't kill her now and that he owes her a favor. He also suggests that she throws some knives at Jack Barlow, which is the first time, Dane's just been all like, oh, just stay away from him, just ignore him, whereas like Zayn's like, no, throw some daggers at him, make him scared of you. So we kind of love Zayden for all his morally greyness that he's giving us right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Uh,
And he is obviously reading her intentions and knows that she is trustworthy, right? Knows that she's not gonna tell.
Exactly.
She's
I think this is one of those scenes where I think if he hadn't had that signet, he might have thought, I need to kill her because he wouldn't have been able to trust her. But obviously, because of
Yeah.
his signet, he could very much tell that she had made an assessment and said, these guys are not doing anything wrong
They're
and
not
they
doing
don't
anything wrong.
deserve to be punished for this. So he knew that she
Mhm.
was going to keep the secret. I don't think Zayden would have taken chances if that hadn't been the case, even
Yeah.
with him kind of liking Violet, even at this early
Yeah.
stage. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Violet then poisons her next few opponents on the mat, and so she's doing pretty well. She's surviving, and she starts preparing for Gauntlet. They find out more about all the different types of dragons and the very rare black dragon. There are only two in service. One is Coda, who is the oldest and the strongest, and the other is currently living in the Vale. We also find out there's a little like bonus Easter egg bit that there's just no signet capable of resurrection, and that any writer that has tried to has burned themselves out. So it's just a little tidbit that was important there.
Important information.
Exactly. Uh, which I guess leads me to go. No, wait. I'll go into that later because I've got a whole theory which I've already spoken about Taryn's previous writer and whether he's now a villain. Not all strength is physical, Violet. This was just a really interesting, just a nice line that I really think that might speak a bit to her second signet, that not all strength is physical. I think that, like I've always said, I think her second signet is going to be something that's more of a mental mind kind of signet. It's going to be interesting. Violet wins some mat sessions due to poisoning her opponents, and then she goes through the gauntlet, survives that, using some alternative methods to get around her size and strength, using the rope and her dagger to overcome the obstacles, and is then paraded past all the dragons. They see a golden feather tail for the first time. And obviously, a lot of the riders don't like it because they like it small, it's weak, it deserves to die. I don't know why anyone would think that's a good idea, but anyway, that's what some of them did. The day of threshing arrives, and Violet stops Jack and two of his friends from killing the golden feather tail. Scale and Zayden are there, and Zayden is about to step in and defend her when they're about to kill her. And Scale obviously is there, and she is pissed. Like, I don't know how you would be there with a massive blue dragon looking at you and you're like, oh, I'm just going to kill this golden dragon. Like, that's just a really good idea. I think that anyone would think that that was not a good idea. But anyway, they did it. And just at the last moment, Taryn arrives speaking to Violet mind to mind, and she finds out
My
that
favorite.
she has the biggest, the baddest black dragon of all time, and he's a dragon. So she climbs on his back, falls off straight away because she's not strong enough, but he catches her, unlike the other dragons, and takes her back to declare his name. As they're going, Andana also talks to her, and she finds out that she's not going to have one, but she has two dragons. This obviously stems
Two dragons!
dragons. Everyone goes into an absolute flurry. They're all losing their minds because this has never happened before and they don't know what to do. But as Taryn says, what it's as it's meant to be. They cannot, no one gets a say in dragon law, so she is allowed to keep her two dragons. Which, just jumping in here, this is a moment where Dane really pisses us off because he straight away turns around and he's like, you need to pick Andana. And she's like, no. And he's like, exactly. He's like, you have to pick Andana. And it's just like, Dane, like, what are you doing? Like, this is just really annoying.
And it's out of some like stupid, like, oh, if you pick Andarna, then you won't get sent into battle, and so you'll be safe.
And
it's
like, you won't be a threat to anyone. No one's going to try and kill you because you've got this dragon. Look, I mean, he comes from the right place, but he's going so the wrong way about it. He really has no idea. One line that I love from Taryn at this age, I think it's one of the very first lines he says to her, which I'm just going to say, just in case it's important. Step aside, Silver One. He says, step aside, Silver One. I don't know. I thought I'd just throw that in there in case one day first line might be important. So there it is.
And what if he, like, in the future is like, step aside, Silver One, because he's like, she's trying to save him and he's gonna like sacrifice himself and he's like, step aside. Like, how sad would that be?
I can't even process that. I refuse to accept anything's gonna happen to a dragon. And if it does, I feel like she's just gonna like pull from the ground, keep them alive, and become venom herself. That is my current. I don't think dragons are actually gonna die. What is interesting at this point is that Andana has just as much respect and inclusion with the dragons in this discussion as Taryn. And I just think that's a really interesting thing to call out because she is a child, basically.
Yeah.
And yet when she's speaking, she speaks with a degree of wiseness. A few times she speaks, while she's a child, she speaks with a knowledge of coming from somewhere else, of having a second home and having to get used to a new place. And that she is well respected among the dragons. And they obviously speak about they don't know how dragon law works. It seems to be that the biggest and most powerful are the most respected. It's just interesting that Andana also seems to have a level of inclusion and respect that you wouldn't expect from a child infant dragon.
And is that just because, knowing what we know now, obviously, is that just because, dragons really think that everyone's voice matters, right? Because they do have this sense of like independence, like a dragon's will is their own? Or are we already starting to see that like Andarna is basically their leader because she's the, elusive extra type of dragon or something that we don't know? Who knows? It could be either of those.
Exactly. Whatever we know that she's a very intelligent, a very respected dragon. And I think more than just your average feather tail, to the point that they wouldn't even tell her not to come to threshing, or like come to, and be part of all that. And I know that she's been sitting in that egg for like 600 years waiting for the right rider. So potentially there's a lot of wisdom there. But there's
Yeah.
also almost a feeling of resurrection. It really interested me when Violet was back in the scribe quadrant and she was speaking about it feeling like home and having a little bit of melancholy that, this used to be her home and now she's got a new home. And
Yeah.
Diana's talking to her mind to mind and she says, yeah, it can be such a strange feeling having a new home and having to say goodbye to an old one. And it's like, and Dana, you're like 2 years old. It's like, what home are you talking about? Like, so
And it's so funny to see her then become teenage Andarna, who it's like she had more wisdom as, like, Feathertail Andarna than she does as, like, teenage Andarna.
yeah,
It's
that's so
very funny.
true,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
like this weird kinda, like, she kinda loses a little bit of her wisdom.
And I don't
But
know
isn't that
whether
true of, like, actual
human
human
beings
children as well? Like, little babies, like, 5, 6-year-olds can say, like, the most wise thing, but then teenagers are just like you're like,
blunt.
"Okay, I don't
They
know
just
how your
blunt
brain is
and full of
surviving."
hormones and emotion, and they don't
Yeah,
wanna talk to you. Yeah, so actually it's actually pretty normal. So I
that's
guess
pretty normal.
dragons are somewhat similar, and I think Rebecca has a lot of experience with her,
She
like,
does have, like,
6
6 or
children that
7
she
kids,
knows
so
knows what the teenage years are like, and she's definitely given
yeah.
us that in Andana. But I'm definitely curious about learning more about Andana and really where she's from
Yeah,
and her history because it's very
yes,
interesting. Anyway, Violet finds out that she is now connected to Xaden through the dragons being mates. And Xaden wants to obviously now protect Violet because if she dies, he'll possibly die because of the dragons. So he sends Imogen to start training Violet. And because they know that the non-bonded riders may now try to kill Violet now that
yeah,
she has the biggest dragon and is probably the easiest person to kill. Xaden is now intent on keeping her alive. Violet finds out that there are no books in the scribe quadrant about the venom because she goes in there to try and get the fables of the barons,
mhm.
and it's not there,
Which
nor
she
is
thought
anything else.
was, like, a common book because of the way how often her father read it to her. It was, like, in her mind, it was just this common book of children's stories, and it's like, nope, nobody's heard of that book at all. So that's, maybe it's
Very
not for specific
interesting.
children,
And I
who
have more
knows?
theories about Papa Sorrengail that I will talk about later because I have lots of thoughts about him and the books that he gave Violet. Okay. Some of her friends are starting to get signets now. One cadet gets the intrinsic forbidden signet and is instantly killed. The
Yeah,
non-bonded cadets then try to kill Violet, and Dana stops time to rescue her, and Xaden comes in at the last minute and literally decimates all of them in anger, which is good because they were all evil. We find out that the Feathertails can gift their powers to people, accidentally gifting them the powers, and we find out that all this was created by Amber Mavis, who is actually a wing leader, and she has assisted in trying to kill Violet. Now, Xaden actually stands by Violet in this moment and actually goes up in front of everyone and says, I call to account Amber Mavis. Dane obviously can't believe this because there's no way a wing leader would ever do the wrong thing. So he does not support Violet at all, and he's telling her to tell the truth. And he wants to try and see her memories, which Violet says no to because they would also see that Andana has stopped time, which is something that she's not allowed to say. So they have to devise another way to let everyone know. But through the dragons, they end up showing all the other dragons what happened, and Amber is instantly killed because of what she did. Liam is now under Xaden in protecting Violet full time. So we get a lot more Liam, which is awesome. And Tarn allows Violet into his power. So he finally says, yep, you're ready. All right, I'm turning it on. So she's got a thing on her back. And now he said, okay, I'm actually going to start channeling the power through you. He also has a intimate moment of dragon time to which Xaden and Violet have a very hard time controlling their own hormones and desires at this moment. And we have a very, very fun scene which ends in a little kiss between
one
Xaden.
of the best moments,
Oh, one of the
I would
best
say,
moments.
in a romantasy book of all time. It is so good. I like that chapter is just so fun and amps up the romantic tension in the best possible way.
It's so good because Xaden doesn't want to, but he does want to, and
But
then
he
he's
does.
sort of
Yeah.
fighting it. And obviously they're both feeling these hormones and vibes, and it's all getting smushed together. And then
And also, again, he's reading her intentions. Like, he knows that, like, she intends to kiss him, you know?
Yeah, yeah, but he's also thinking she's being influenced by
Yeah,
Taryn, he's like, "No, I can't take advantage of you," but he's also having to touch her to try and, teach her how to
flip her
control and, like,
down.
shut the
Yeah,
door and put her foot on the floor of the scribe quadrant or whatever it is that she has to do, library, so that she can control that power coming into her. But anyway, awesome scene. We love it. Okay.
it's so good.
Violet finally fights Jack Barlow on the mat, but she learns that he has an allergic reaction to oranges, and at the last minute uses some oranges to basically almost kill him and keep herself alive.
Yep.
Zayden is then extremely angry that she didn't tell him that she knew this was going to happen, and he now starts to train her full time, and gives her some daggers that are appropriate for her hand size, which is super cute. And they also, again, have a really cool scene where she like has to disarm him, but in the like sexy way, where she uses her womanly ways to get those daggers
Because
off
he can't
Satan.
give her the daggers. She can only have weapons that she earns. So she has to, like,
Right.
earn them from him. And
Hmm.
so, he maybe makes it a little easy for her.
That's right. Okay, they complete the squad battle and manage to win that by stealing Violet's mother's, like, Sorengale's map. They then go on a dragon rider holiday, which is really not a holiday. It's just a slightly warmer environment, but it's still like army based. And they go there for a week, and she sees her sister Mira, which is a really sweet, cute, like, they've come together. They like, Mira gets confirmation that Violet's alive, and it's really nice. And a few days later, Zayden comes to join them. Zayden starts speaking to Violet mind to mind, and she finds out that because of the dragons, they can talk
Yeah.
mind to mind as well. And we have lots of flirting, and things are starting to kind of heat up between these two, let's just say.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Xaden says that he came to the base because Sigale couldn't wait.
mhm.
But we find out in the bonus chapter. So if you haven't read the bonus chapter, you really should. It's in the paperback version of Fourth Wing, but you can also find it online. Sigale was like completely fine without Taryn. It was
Was Zayden.
Xaden. Xaden is already basically obsessed with Violet by this scene, and he's the one that was like, "No, I have to go see her. I have to make sure she's okay."
I
Sigale and
know.
Taryn were like completely fine apart. So, love that.
Exactly, exactly. I know the bond is quite a bit stronger right now between Zayden and Violet than it is
Mhm.
between Scale and Taryn. They're like, "Yeah, we're
Yeah.
fine. We've,
Yeah.
like, been married for years. He can go for a week.
Right.
I'm
We can be
fine."
together for years. We can handle this.
Whereas they're like
Yeah.
new romance. So they're like, "Oh, we gotta be away from them." Whereas, like, when you've been
They've
married
kissed
for a
once,
while,
and
you're like, "You can
Xaden
go
is
for a
like,
month. I'm fine."
yeah, yeah. They had their first kiss, and now Xaden is like, "I must be with her."
Exactly. All right, the wards fall and they have to escape. And as they do, Zayden kisses her for a second time. So we get a bit more like, more's happening now.
Mhm.
More's happening. They have a final battle, and Taryn comes out. Oh, sorry. They have to go prepare for sort of their final sort of battle challenge, whatever it is. And Taryn comes out wearing a saddle that Zayden has made especially for Violet. Questions as to how he has made that from small to big, mind you. I think, as someone has theorized, that maybe Garrick actually has that signet where he can make things big and make things little. We don't know what Garrick's signet is yet. I really like that theory. I think that's on the money. But he's obviously had some help making it a big size to fit Taryn. But that's really cute. And this now allows Violet to kind of be free and on her dragon and actually finally use her signet. So in this battle, she has to battle Jack Barlow. He's been arsehole. He's trying to kill everyone. She finally drops a mountain on him, which we think finally Jack is dead. And that is using her power. She thinks that she's actually burning out and she's using too much power, but she's actually got the power of lightning, which is very, very exciting. One of the biggest signets you can have. And Taryn is excited. Everyone is excited. She has lightning wielding abilities. And the only person
The
who's
end
upset
of
is,
that chapter
yeah.
is just I remember this from the audiobooks. The end of that chapter is just Taryn screaming, "Lightning wielder!"
Yeah, that's right.
And it's so fun because, like, that's how I felt too as the reader. I was like, "Lightning wielder,
Oh,
yeah!"
I know. You wanted it to be something epic, and then it wasn't. It's like,
And
yes,
it was so
yes,
epic,
that is
yes.
what I want. The only person that's upset about it is Violet because she's like, oh, I really wanted to be a mender and do something that's about healing people, and instead I can kill
Yeah.
a ton of people. But anyway, Zayden comes, she's in a nightgown, she's all sad, and they, heal the only way they know how, with some intimate time. So so Violet, so then what happens? Okay, where am I up to? So yeah, anyway, they get it on. There's a storm. They break some furniture because she doesn't know how to control her lightning, and things
And
can
I
get a
think
little
it's important to note that her signet manifests a lot when she's getting sexy time with
sexy
Xaden,
time
because
when
I
she's
think when
highly
we go into
emotional.
Iron Flame, it's really, like, there's another moment, where I think it's so important that when she's with Xaden, when she has these, like, heightened emotions is when we're seeing her signet.
Mhm.
Um, because, like, that's for her, she is so driven by emotion.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which also makes you wonder, have we seen her second signet in other intimate moments? Because this seems to be a time where her signets manifest.
manifest,
Okay.
exactly.
Jumping forward a little bit, there is then a party where the king comes to celebrate sort of the end of the rebellion.
Like a
And
holiday, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And anyway, all the big powers that be are at this, and Violet realizes how horrible this is for Xaden and Liam. And Liam has come with her to
And
this.
the
So
Marked
then she's
Ones.
like, let's get out of here. And she has to go and then try and find Xaden. And Xaden is on the parapet by himself, and Violet goes and joins him in her skirt and barefoot. She goes and rewalks the parapet to be with Xaden, which Xaden gets very angry at her and is like, hey, I've actually got shadows that can just like lower me safely to the ground, whereas you could actually die. So he gets quite angry at her for going out there. But they start
Mhm.
to really share their strong feelings for each other and really open up to each other. They then obviously have another intimate moment, and then war games begin. And Violet is put with Xaden and his group, which end up being all marked ones. Now, another probably important fact, which we find out, was during that party scene, Dane comes up to her and he's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Hands on face.
Ugh.
Yes. And that ends up being a problem for a bit later. So
Mhm.
they have to go outside the wards, and lo and behold, we find out that Xaden has been helping the Griffin Flyers, and he has been keeping this all a secret. Violet is livid that he has been keeping secrets from her.
Very angry.
And she also obviously thinks right now that he is still working. He's a rebel and he's working with the bad guys. But then what Violet finds out is that the Venom are actually real, and that the Griffins and their flyers are out there trying to fight these Venom, and that Navarre is doing nothing to help them or protect them. And Xaden has been getting weapons out to the Griffins. She learns about the material that is used in the weapons that also they use for the wards, but also kill the venom. Um, they then find out when they get there that Dane's dad has actually set this all up, and he is trying to use this war game as a way to kill off all the marked ones, and Violet has been caught in the thick of it. So anyway, we find out that Dane has taken her memories during that party scene, and he has found out where they were going, which I'm trying to remember what the place is called. I think I wrote it down here somewhere. What was the place called that they went to? I'm sure I wrote it down. Anyway,
Isn't it Reston?
Reston. Yes.
Reston, I think. I
Yeah.
think. I could be wrong, but I
Yeah,
think that's
and
what it
that's
is, yeah.
where Xaden and that have been going and taking the weapons to. So they basically sent them there and said, try and survive. And they're also testing whether they are truly loyal to Navarre or not. 'Cause they basically said you can either stay and defend like the town and all the people there that are now going to die because we've actually called a heap of venom that are going to come here, or you can go back to base and prove your loyalty to Navarre and leave the people to die. obviously, all the marked ones say, hells no, we're going to leave innocent people, including Violet. They say, no, we're going to stay here and we're going to fight and we're going to help the Griffin Flyers because this is not right. So they all agree to stay and try and fight the battle. So let me find out where I'm up to because I've completely lost. Have you got any thoughts on this while I look at my notes and can't find where I was up
Yeah,
to?
so, I mean, I think what's interesting is, I do still think there's this, like, this question about what did Dane really know? And he gets a mini redemption arc in Iron Flame, but I'm not sure that he's fully redeemed yet. And I think because before they head out for the games, Dane is like basically begging her not to
Yeah.
go with Xaden, begging her. And then when she finally is like, "No, I'm going with my wing leader, right? I go where I'm commanded,"
Yeah.
which is a perfectly logical response, right? To say, "I'm
Mhm.
following the chain of command. I'm not gonna, like, break the chain of command." He's like, "Then fine. You deserve the fate that you're getting." So, clearly he knew something was up,
Yes.
and I'm not, and then, like, of course, there's, like, he was out of breath in that bonus chapter, like, I still think there are unanswered questions about Dane.
100%. And I still wonder if he is still being like a double agent, that even with his redemption arc, I'm still not 100% certain that he's not still using this for spying purposes.
Yeah.
Part of me does like Dane. Like part of me sees the good in Dane and wants to believe that he has redeemed himself and he's realized what's right, because I do think Dane was her friend for the longest time. He obviously has a good side to him. I would like to think that that side is what we're seeing in the redemption arc, but we've also seen his extreme loyalty to Navarre
Mhm.
and to the rules, and that sort of trumping
That doesn't
everything else.
go away overnight.
No.
Like, that doesn't go away in one book. So
Yes. And
I'm not sure that we've seen him fully, like, change for good yet.
And we've also seen him choose the rules over Violet, because in this, he kisses
Mhm.
her and then she's like, oh, I'm actually not feeling it. But he did feel it. And then he came back and he's like, oh, we can't date. And she's like, oh, great. You feel the same way. And he's like, no, 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 because I'm like in your chain of command and it's against the law. And she's like, really? You won't break the rules for me? Like, it's a pretty light rule. Like, it's just a bit of a you shouldn't do it, not you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, we've already seen that he will always choose the rules over his like relationships and that, and he
Yeah.
really keeps a divide. So have we seen him really see the light, or have we seen him find an opportunity to get in and find more information and build trust with
100%.
Jaden and Violet? So yeah, interesting times. Okay, so Violet now realizes that the Venom are real and they are coming. And thank goodness she had read that book of the Fables of the Barons like
Okay,
100
well.
times. And she happens to know quite a bit about the Venom, more than the others do. Uh, we are lucky because Liam has Farsight and he can see them off in the distance. And he's like, 1 minute they're not there, and then suddenly they're just there. Like, boom, they're just there. So they are then on their ways and they talk about how they look, how they've got the red veins and everything, and how the magic corrupts their souls. They find out that the Venom have Wyvern, which are very similar to dragons, except they have the 2 arms instead of the 4 legs, and that they are not only fighting Venom, but they are also fighting the Wyvern. We find out that the dragons and the griffins can communicate with each other. We find out that they've always been able to talk to each other the same way that they talk to their bonded riders, mind to mind. And a little interesting extra little Easter egg that I went back and I listened to it again. So they're all going for this like clock tower, they're all aiming for it, and then they say that there is a building that has a crate of something with Liam's family crest, and it's highly unstable. Have you had you ever paid attention to that line before? That there is
I remember it. I remember reading it and thinking, that's interesting." And then I think I just forgot about it, to be honest with
yeah.
you. I think I just completely forgot about it. I'm sure I haven't personally seen any theories about that. I'm sure Fantasy Fangirls caught that. I'm sure
Yeah, they would have broken it
other
down,
theorists have
surely.
caught it, people who do much more deep theorizing than we do, as we like to state we're about the vibes here. But, um, yeah, I completely forgot about it.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
interesting.
and, like, what did Liam's family do? And what? Because so it was a crate with Liam's family crest, and whatever was in it was highly unstable, and I believe this is what the Venom were trying to get their hands on. So,
Yeah.
I would need to do more research on Liam and his family and what do we know much more about what they did? And I feel like in Iron Flame, I don't know if we got much more information about Liam. I mean, we obviously know that he's somewhat connected to Xaden and his family, which is somewhat royal, but we don't know much about Liam. The only thing I would say about Liam that I think is interesting is we tend to have a bit of a negative vibe about the red dragons that, we question if
Mhm.
they're good or not. And he had a red dragon. But otherwise, I love Liam and I refuse to believe anything bad. And I think Dee was beautiful. I refuse to accept anything bad. But anyway, it's just really interesting. And I would really like to know more about that. And if anyone
Yeah.
has any more deep dives on that particular little snippet of information, please tell us because I think it's pretty interesting and I would like to know more about it.
Yeah.
A wyvern kills Liam's dragon, and it's really upsetting.
So
And
sad.
I didn't even cope like the ninth time. This time I was audio listening to it, and it just hits a whole different way, and it hurt more than the first time. I was crying. I was not coping. But yeah, I had to go live through that all again. So you guys are welcome. I was doing my due diligence and putting my mental health through pain. Okay. Violet kills so then Violet is super angry and she goes off and she manages to kill a Venom. And she realizes that by killing the Venom, you kill their wyvern as well. Violet is stabbed with a green tipped dagger and manages to get through her scale, her dragon scale, and it only sort of nicks her. I think what we realized, she doesn't get like full blown stabbed. It just sort of nicks her. She's like, "Oh, that's nothing." Then she's like, "Oh wait, I don't feel good."
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
The
yeah. Wait,
poison is
that
really
was
bad.
poisoned. But she manages to hold it together to fight the rest of the Venom. And she manages to control, as she's fighting this female Venom, the Venom says to her that you could command the sky with your power. You have no idea how much power you actually have. And she realizes that she has more ability than she thinks. And because she can't control her lightning yet, she asks Sandana to kind of pause time so she can then kind of wield the lightning and kind of direct it in the right direction.
Direct it where it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, to hit the Venom. So she pretty much kills all but one. And then I think Xaden comes in and like slaughters the final one, like really heroically and epically.
Yeah.
But then she is overcome with, she's pretty much at burnout. She is fighting this venom that's going through her veins and she falls off Taryn and she is falling to her death. And we get the feeling, we kind of sense that Andana stops time again to rescue her. She kind of ends up in Xaden's arms and she loses consciousness.
Before we move on from that, so just going back to this chest with Liam's family crest. So they don't
Love
recover
a
it,
chest.
right?
Mhm.
The Venom ultimately get it. Is that right? Is that what we're supposed to take
Well,
away? Is it unclear?
because at the very end, they say that Garrick's dragon is sensitive to runes, and they get the box that the Venom were after. So I don't actually know
Or
if
they
the Venom did
do?
manage to get. Well, I think all the Venom died. I don't think any managed to get away with it. So I
Oh,
think it
nice.
was still left there, and Garrick went back because his dragon was. And that was literally what the line said. Garrick's dragon is sensitive to runes, and so they went back to retrieve the box that the Venom were after. So they're going to kind of bring it back to Xaden's
But we
erasure.
don't know what it's never brought up again?
I don't know. Now I have to go read Iron Flame. I haven't read that in ages. Now I need to go in that and see, did we find out more about the box and what it had, or was that all kept secret from us as readers?
Yeah.
Because
I didn't remember it. So now that I'm doing Iron Flame rereads, I'll try to see if they mention the box.
I know.
But it's so interesting that it's like that's not wrapped up, that we don't find out what's in
No,
it.
no, no. So anyway, so yeah, so that's basically then most of it. So he ends up because taking her back to Basgiath would take too long. So they end up taking
Yep.
her back to Erasia, and we find out that there is a mender there that mends her. And then we get Zayden's POV for the final chapter, and we find out how much he is in love with her, and she wakes up and she is mended. And then we find out that Brennan is alive and they've all been keeping a secret. And even there is one line where she's talking to Liam at that party and she talks about Brennan, and then she says, oh no, Brennan would never like be okay with this. And he goes, yeah, that sounds like him. And then he quickly changes the subject because he realizes, oh shit, I just
Oh shoot.
nearly gave it away.
I'm
He's
supposed to have never
alive.
met this guy. That's so funny.
So,
To
and
be
that,
honest,
yeah.
it's so funny. Like, I had kind of forgotten most of the plot of Fourth Wing, even though I've read it 3 times and made a bunch of theories. I remember the, like, world building and the things we learned, but
You
I
remember the
often
big
forget
stuff.
the plot itself.
I
Yeah,
know,
like, I
you're like,
forgot that,
you
like
remember, like, parapet, gauntlet, them getting
yeah,
it on, like, bits and pieces,
that
but
kind of the vibes. I remember the
yeah,
vibes. I
yeah.
forgot that, like, they ended up in Reston because of Dane's dad and war games. Like, I completely forgot about that.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. Well, you
it's
are
always good to have these little
welcome.
refreshers.
How was this summary? Did I summarize it? What would you rate it out of 10? How did I do today?
I yeah, I mean, I haven't reread it, so I'm like 10 out of 10. You did great. You
Yay!
didn't miss a thing, but I clearly don't have a great memory.
Well, I really wanted to bring it because it's true. You kind of know just the general summary, but I think going back and looking at things step by step, it's such a movie though. It's such a it really does feel scene by scene. And I think that's why it's so enjoyable to read because it's just constant action,
It
constant
is.
things
It's
that are just
constant.
constantly happening. And that's why you can get really just caught up in that and you do miss some of the little Easter eggs that are in there. And look, honestly, there
Mhm.
were so many more, but I had to bring this down. Otherwise, we'd be here for hours and I'd have to like
Hours,
literally
yeah.
do a fantasy fangirls and break it down a couple of chapters at a time. But that gives you a quick summary of some of the big things that happened and some of the takeaways. But without going too much further, let's jump into chapter 1 and Easter eggs. Because as I said at the beginning of this episode, I think for so many authors, they do leave a lot of Easter eggs for the whole series in the first chapter
Mhm.
because they want you to be able to go back at the very end and say, oh, it was all there the whole time and we just didn't know it. So with that being said, let's go into, and look, this isn't necessarily like a theory. It's just little bits and pieces that I've just pointed out that I either go, that's interesting, just sentences and things that you kind of go, I think that's really interesting and it might mean something. And hopefully more light will be shed in Onyx Storm. But do you have any
Mhm.
final thoughts before I jump into chapter 1?
No, let's look at the Easter eggs. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what you pulled out.
Yeah. All right. So we start with, and this is also linked to Rebecca Yaros, did just post the first page of Fourth Wing just like about a week ago in the time that we're
Mhm.
recording. And she had highlighted 3 lines. First one was that sort of prologue at the top of the chapter, a dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without their dragon is dead. Conscription Day is always the deadliest, and I vote.
Mhm.
So that were the 3 lines that she had highlighted, which some people were saying, because I posted about this, and I was saying, oh no, she was talking about novellas and writing the next book and things like that. But I do truly believe that my theory is that in the next book on Conscription Day, we're going to have a heap of Venom joining as first years this year. I think we're going to have a lot of Venom
Mhm.
infiltrating this year. And that's why she's
Totally.
highlighted those. It's going to be a very, very dangerous year at Basgiath. And I think we've already seen
Yeah.
that with those other little snippets and sneak peeks that we've already had with the chapters that we've seen.
Yes. Yeah, I think I know that we're talking about like Easter eggs, but I think a lot of people are maybe expecting Onyx Storm for like the war to have begun because we get the battle at the end of Iron Flame. But I don't think the war has begun in earnest. I think we're gonna
Mhm.
have another year at Basgiath. Obviously, a lot of things are gonna happen, but it is still gonna be a year at Basgiath.
Yeah.
And this is not full-blown war yet. This is, they're getting attacked at Basgiath. This is book 6 of Harry Potter. This isn't book 7 where they're like
No.
fully away from, you know, the
Yeah.
the school and looking, trying to take down the evil. They're still at school. So and that means that there will be Venom who join. I think that's a really great
Yeah.
theory.
Well, I would even not even say we're even that far in. I would say we're at book 4 or 5. Like, I think
Yeah,
has Rebecca confirmed this is gonna be a 5-book series? Has she confirmed
she
that? Or
has.
is
Yeah,
yeah,
she
yeah.
has.
So we're halfway. We're halfway. This is where things are getting real, things are getting serious. Like, you'd probably say Iron Flame was starting to head into, if we were going by Harry Potter standards, maybe book 3, book 4 kind of. Now we're kind of book 4, book 5. Like, we're getting
Mhm.
serious. I don't know, I think we're heading into really dark days. I feel like
The
it's
evil has been awakened, but you're not necessarily full-blown fighting it yet.
no, we
It's
still
kind
have a
of
lot of
like
build up before that's
mhm,
officially gonna happen. It may
mhm.
happen throughout this book, but we're certainly not going to, I mean, I think we're still gonna enter, and there's still gonna be a degree of, life is still going on as it's meant to.
They're
We're
still at
still just
school.
having another
Mhm,
year
exactly.
of new writers coming in, everything's still going as it's meant to, even though shit is about to hit the fan. Like, it's really close,
Yes,
but they're
yeah,
still keeping
and
civilization going as normal at the moment.
yeah, and I think similar again, like, just taking it back to Harry Potter because it's just an easy series to kind of
Compare.
compare, it maybe is like book 5 where, you know, the protagonist,
Mhm.
Harry and Violet, both know that the evil has been awakened, but everyone else is pretending like it's not, and that is, like, an internal struggle that the main character has to deal with, right? Like,
Yeah,
very similar to how that happens to Harry in book 5,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I think
Exactly.
we're still people are still trying to live business as usual, and that may be a challenge for Violet. She may be like, "What the heck? Like, there's Venom, let's go fight them," but that's not gonna be what the book is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. All right. So, one of the lines that Violet says is very interesting, and it could just be us delivering this information to us so we know, but I still think it's interesting. She says, "I don't need the prohibited power of mind reading to know what my mother is thinking." Just thought that was just an interesting line. Like, just yes, maybe they're
Yep.
just introducing intrinsic and letting us know that. But I also wonder if there's a little bit more to that. Obviously, it could be
Yeah.
connected to Zayden, but yeah, let's just watch this space because I just feel like that was
Yeah.
just interesting. She also talks about being too short, too frail. Her mum talks about how she looks pale skin, pale eyes, pale hair. I told them not to keep you in that library. I thought that was just, again, just a little interesting little snippet, obviously giving us an
Mhm.
idea of this illness that has impacted Violet, that sort of sucked all the life out of her, so to speak. Um, it's been a year since his heart finally failed. This is Violet talking about her dad. And I feel my father's presence in the library. I think it's really interesting because he really does talk about Brennan and how he died fighting the Tirish Rebellion, and that her father's chest pain started straight after Brennan's death. So I have a lot of
Ooh,
theories and wondering
interesting.
about, especially with Brennan having these mender powers and Naolan, and whether there was some kind of something taken from Violet's dad. I do believe that Papa Sorrengail really died, but I do think something happened to him that has made his heart fail, and I wonder if some life has been taken from him or something, whether that is through Brennan or something else that has
Yeah.
impacted him at that specific time. Um, yeah, I just thought that was very interesting. Um, Her mum acknowledges that Violet is small, but also mentally strong. Her mum almost gives her a compliment, saying that yes, she's small, she's weak, but she's one of the strongest of all of you. Actually, acknowledges the mental power she has had to push through all her health issues and broken
Yeah.
bones and things like that. And which is actually just a really nice sort of scene, and I think obviously speaks a lot to what we get from her mum in Iron Flame. But
Yeah.
yeah, mental strength is a big thing that is discussed throughout this chapter. Um, her mum says so much like your father, and I kind of wonder what that might mean for the
What that
future.
might mean.
We
Yeah.
have thousands entering the gates on conscription day. This again points to my concerns with this third year of potential venom. You got thousands of people entering. There is no way you can control all those people. And if there are venom, sprinkled in there, they're going to have a lot of issues because they've just got their
Yeah.
gates wide open, letting these people in. They warn us against the lure of magic and even demonize dragons. This is her talking just a little bit about the fables of the Baron. She kind of goes to it and she says, "Oh, they talk, against the lure of magic and they even demonize dragons." Now, we don't get the specifics in this moment about whether that's in reference to Wyvern or whether there is actually something in these fables about saying that some dragons are bad. The demonized dragons.
Yeah.
Specifically
Yeah.
says demonized dragons, not wyvern. Then it talks about the venom and the wyvern. So I kind of wonder. I would like to know more about
Well,
that.
and is a demonized dragon a dragon bonded to a venom, somebody who becomes venom, and something like bad happens to the dragon when they are with a bonded or like their rider is
No, but
venom,
like where
because we know
theoretically venom lose their soul, could that also mean that a dragon
impact the
will lose
dragon
their
in some
soul
way.
as well?
Yeah, because we've seen what? We've seen one
Thanks.
dragon that we know for sure is bonded to a venom, and that's Jack's dragon, and it had, like, glassy, milky eyes.
Yeah, but it seemed like it was
Um,
pink. It was controlled. Like
it was, like, controlled, and that could be what they mean by, like, the demon dragon or something.
it's very
I don't
interesting.
know.
It's a very
Very
interesting
interesting.
line,
Yeah.
and like where this is going, and I'm equally terrified. Equally
Yeah,
terrified.
right?
Okay. Another line is, "You can die as a scribe or live as a writer." And it's just a cool line. Might not mean anything, but it's
I
just a
love
cool line.
that.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so Mira braids Violet's hair into a crown. Now, this is obviously just an intimate moment. She's obviously preventing it from flying in her eyes, but I do think it's quite interesting that she refers to it as a crown. And I wonder whether that might
Mhm.
have a little bit of a hint of
Well,
something.
and Violet braids her hair that way a lot, and no other character does that we have
That's
seen.
right.
So,
That's
I think
right.
that's really interesting. I think
Exactly.
that's a good call out.
We
Mhm.
find out a bit about the small to big, big to small power, the vice versa power, which we have not yet seen any rider, dragon rider, that actually has that power as yet. Mira says your brain is your best weapon. And I think that's interesting because I bet
Mhm.
that brain is going to be a big part of her second signet. So let's just watch out
I
for that
think
one.
so. I definitely think so.
Mhm. They talk about that there is never enough dragons willing to bond. And I think even now, we still haven't really had that understanding of why every year there are less and less dragons willing to bond. We can obviously theorize that it's because maybe Coda and that are bad, that Navarre is bad, and slowly the dragons are sort of turning against like being part of Basgiath and Navarre.
Mhm.
But then why is Taryn? Why is Andana? Like, why are they doing it?
Well, and another theory I've seen a lot of people talk about, which makes sense to me, is that maybe they think that there are all these unbonded dragons because people have died, but actually they've turned venom. And so they're still technically bonded. So, like, potentially it seems
Can't
like there's all
bond.
these unbonded dragons, but there's not.
And
I
it's
think it's
like,
very
oh,
likely just that, like, I think we're kind of theorizing big picture that there's going to be a set of people in Navarre who are good and a set of people in Navarre who are bad, and part either are venom or have experimented with venom
yeah,
power, and I think that that could easily extend to the dragons.
there could
They're
be
split
an army
themselves.
of venom dragons, which is
Mhm,
like terrifying.
mhm,
But the
which is
other thing
terrifying.
is that there could just be dragons going, it's not worth the risk. That
It's
we're
not worth the
seeing
risk.
too
It
many
could be
getting
they know that
turned. They
if
know
their
about
rider
that.
turns bad, that they get mind controlled, and so they're just like,
It's not
"I'm
worth the
not
risk.
willing to, like, put my life on the line like that." Yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
Exactly. And also why dragons are being more and more selective about who they pick because they kind of want to make
Mhm,
sure that they're not going to pick someone that's going to potentially turn venom, someone that's going to make good
mhm.
choices over bad, things like that. So that's very interesting. Tyrandor was the last to join the alliance. Okay, now I'm jumping into, and this might actually be second chapter, but and look, you might want to go yourself, so I didn't grab all of it because it was going to take too long to explore. But Violet gives a lot of information about the general world as she's crossing the parapet. Because as she's crossing the
Yeah.
parapet, she's freaking out and she starts reeling off all this knowledge she knows to keep herself calm. But I bet a lot of that information is actually really important. So just a couple of
Yeah.
things just for your knowledge. But seriously, there's a lot of it there. So go back and read it and actually pay attention to what they say and to whether it's important. But some things they say is Tyrandor was the last to join the alliance and the only province to attempt succession. They would have been defenseless, being Navarre would have been defenseless if that had been unsuccessful. Poromiel has a collection of gems capable of expanding minor magics. And there's a trade agreement of resin where meat and lumber are traded for agriculture and a few other things 4 times a year. I didn't get all the information because it was going to take too long. And I was audio listening to it rather than reading it. But there is some very interesting details. And again, I think this is Rebecca covering up information with action and drama so it's there, we don't pay a lot of attention to it, but I think
Right.
we're going back and actually looking.
And it's like presented like, oh, these are just like common facts that aren't that important because Violet's just saying them to herself to keep herself calm, but actually maybe they're very important. So
Mhm.
good tip to go reread that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So now from here, I'm going to jump into, I guess, some theories and thoughts and questions that I had
Perfect.
finishing up Fourth Wing. Have you got anything you want to jump in with before I jump into, I guess, some of my thoughts from reading this for like the 10th time?
I have not read it that many times. No, I mean, I think I have more theories that I'll talk about in when we get to the Iron Flame episode
Yeah.
because to be honest, I don't have so many of my theories are like dependent on Iron Flame. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um
Oh, I feel like I've read this book to pure exhaustion. I'm like, I don't think
yeah,
I can get much.
right.
I'm at that point, and I'm similar with Sarah J. Maas as well, where I'm like, I cannot get any more from these books without answers from the authors. Like the authors actually
Yeah,
just
right.
write their next
Exactly.
book,
Exactly.
so I can actually find out what happens because I can only do so much theorizing before my brain hurts and my heart hurts, and I just can't. But it was really good to go back and refresh myself because yes, I read it like 5 times, but that was probably like a year ago. It was really good to go back and refresh and
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
did get some new insights, particularly because this might be my first time reading it since Iron Flame, to then go back and
Yeah.
review some of the things we read about that first time and go, oh, actually, okay, I'm seeing that from a new light now. That actually brings up a new question. So, okay, these were just some of my takeaways. And these are not our theories that we've already gone into. These are new ones. So Violet, one of my theories. Okay. All right. This is probably my biggest one. So we have the scene where Violet gets the book that her dad has left her. I think is it the
Mhm.
Fables of the Baron? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think it's the
yeah,
Fables
I
of the
think it is.
Baron. Mhm.
Anyway, it gets dropped. I think it might be during the spicy scene with Zayden, and then the back of it breaks. And out
Mhm.
pops this secret letter that her dad has
Letter.
actually left for her, and with
Mhm.
instructions that say, um, I know you'll do the right thing when the time comes. Now, my question is, how did her dad know that she would potentially break that? Because there was every good chance that she would look after that book, put it carefully, like a good little scribe. She'd look after it and it never would have broken. He, okay, he knew he had to get a message across to her at some point, but there was no way he could have known that she was going to potentially get that information when she needed it, unless someone had told him or he already
Mm.
knew.
Interesting,
I
interesting. The
obviously
time
have.
travel theory reeks its
Yes,
head again.
yes, yes. I obviously have a very strong feeling that part of Violet's second signet will be an ability to time travel and possibly
Mhm.
see people, possibly with the exception of herself. And I do believe that she may have gone back and spoken to her father and said, I need this information. This is the information I will need in order to survive. And he's made sure, and knowing you need to put it in the back of this book because it's going to break. And I will then get the information that I need. So I do feel like at some point she's gone back and set things up to make sure that she gets the right information at the right time.
Interesting, yeah. And do you think we have seen the moment where she has to do the right thing when the time comes?
No,
No, I
no.
don't think so either. So
I
I think there's still a moment where
I think it's still
she's gonna
coming.
have to make a choice, and she'll think about that letter from her dad. And again, like, maybe that will be a moment where, like, he had a lot more information than we thought he did.
Mhm.
Um, like, he knows exactly the choice that she needs to make or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
I
really
wanna
interesting.
I wanna sidetrack slightly here because I wanna talk about June, the books and the movies series June for a moment,
Yeah.
because I've just been watching June Prophecy. And something that came to light with the recent interview we did with the sort of fourth wing specialist that we had on was realizing the actual significance of truth sayers in, I guess, fantasy and science
Writ large,
fiction
yeah,
and that.
yeah.
And there's a huge, I just always thought truth sayers, I'd really just taken them on what they were in this book so far, that they can really just sense if people are telling a lie or the truth, and that's about it. But in June, the truth sayers have a lot of power. They're very
Yeah.
intelligent women. They're sort of warriors, and they really have a lot of powers, a lot more than we can possibly imagine. Um, Another really interesting thing about June is they also have an Empyrean. Uh, and I think that, I don't know, I guess my thought is I wonder how much Rebecca has drawn from June, whether she was a June fan or whether she has taken some things from that. And if so, is there a chance that Violet's second signet really will be Truthsayer, especially given that some of the powers they potentially have are things like time travel, having the ability to control time, to control
Mhm.
a lot more than just telling the truth if they're extremely powerful. I don't know. What do
Or
you think?
even just potentially, like, sense whether something is true or not. Because so much to me, so much of this book is hinges on the concept of revisionist history, and that there are, the victors, and one generation can change the narrative and change the story of what
Mhm.
really happened. And we know that Violet is so sensitive to being lied to. And so I wonder if it's maybe like truth saying at its most basic concept, which is not just, is somebody lying to me, but is this one thing true or false?
Yeah.
Like, is this fact true or false? And that kind of like also ties on her scribe history, ties on what she needs as a person, and ties to like what truth sayers could be, kind of like within fantasy. So like
Mhm.
maybe she would have the ability to, like, read a book and be like, "Oh, that's not true," or something. That would be really cool. That would be a really cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we know that Violet has a particular obsession with knowing the truth and
With
knowing
no
that
secrets
people are
and
not
not
lying
having
to her.
secrets. No secrets.
So if there is anything you would say that is part of her personality, it would definitely be, oh, I feel like I'm jumping off a bit here. Am I working or have I gone frozen?
Nope,
Wait.
you're fine.
Okay, awesome. I kind of like blacked out for a minute. I'm like, so I definitely think that she, yeah, potentially would need to know the truth more than anything else. I think there's a very good chance that could be it. But
Mhm.
I think what's exciting for me, I'd heard it, but I thought it'd be kind of boring. It's not a very interesting signet until I heard about the actual potential of that power and what it
Yeah,
can mean in if you actually look at fantasy books and how truth sayers are very known in the wider fantasy world and the kind of powers that they can potentially have. And if you look at things like June and things like that, you can realize that this can be a serious superpower. So I
yeah,
think that it's a very strong contender, very strong.
yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
another theory I have is whether Violet is going to turn Venom by taking power from the ground to save either Taryn and Dana or Zayden. I think that this could be the moment we're talking about where she has to make a really difficult decision. But the thing I know about Violet is she will do almost anything to save the people that she loves.
That she
And
loves.
I
Mhm.
feel like in those moments, she becomes very cold, very vengeful, very calculating. And I believe that a dragon may be in danger, but I also think that Violet will literally do anything to prevent something from happening, including
Yeah.
putting herself on the line.
Yeah. I really want her to like, I genuinely want her to turn venom because I just feel like it would be so fun. And I think that it's like the natural story arc for her character, but we'll see. Um Apparently, I mean, I can't remember where I heard this, and so I don't like I have not fact checked this, but apparently Rebecca Yarros said that she wanted Violet to be the one who turned venom
Yeah.
in at the end of Iron Flame, and like her editor kind of pushed back strongly on that, and so they compromised and made it Xaden instead, which,
Mhm.
if that's true, it's just interesting because then it's like, well, then how is Xaden being Venom gonna impact the rest of the story if the whole time you thought it was gonna be Violet as you were, like, plotting out the story?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I want, and maybe it's actually it doesn't matter because the plan is that they both turn Venom, and so what the editor was fighting over was which one turned Venom first. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I
it's
don't know.
so
Yeah. I mean, you would think with that, they'd be like, no, let's not turn Violet bad. And look, I kind of, if he's already kind of turned Venom and then she turns out, like, suddenly everyone's Venom. It's like, is that too much? Is that
right, is
sort
that
of,
too much? Yeah,
you
I
know,
know, it's
someone has to hold the line. But I like the idea that Violet is going to have a very difficult decision to make. And I do feel like if someone's life's
Mhm.
on the line, she will do nearly anything to bring them back. And whereas,
Definitely.
yeah, Zayden also would, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like he's gonna do everything he can not to mess with Venom power anymore. The main focus is gonna
Yeah,
be on finding a cure or treatment or
yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
might be. But this leads me to something that I spoke about just recently, which is Naolan actually now being the sage. That in that
Oh.
moment when he saved Brennan, when he brought him back, because they said you can't do it without burning out, did he possibly take power from the ground and actually save Brennan, but turn
By
sage
turning Venom.
himself? Um,
I do believe that Naolan is alive, and I believe that he is Venom. I feel very confident in that because Brennan said in Iron Flame that Naolan saved him and it cost him everything. He didn't
yeah,
say it cost him his life. He said it
yeah,
cost him everything.
yes.
So I do believe that Naolan is Venom. Whether or not he's the sage is hard for me to gauge because I feel like that sage was clearly very powerful, and I get the vibes that they're very young,
Mhm,
or sorry, not very young, very old is what I mean to say.
mhm.
So I don't know if Naolan is
They've
the
just pulled him
sage per
under
se, but
the wing.
potentially.
Yes, yes. It's hard to know, real obviously, it's
Yeah.
impossible to know. We don't know what she's gonna
Yeah.
write yet. But we like Brennan, yeah, he's got p he I this kind of justifies why he has been, I guess, such a part of the rebels and hasn't
Mhm.
gone back to Basgiath and said, "Oh, actually, I'm alive." That he has potentially felt so guilty about what's happened that he said, "I need to stop this." And if I go back to Basgiath, I can't fight the Venom. I can't try and stop what
Mhm.
Naolan is now doing. I have to do this. I guess it adds a real interesting complexity to Taryn as a character that obviously the break that he did from his previous rider nearly killed him. And it was probably only him being a very strong rider that he managed to do that. But I think there's a lot more that Taryn knows that he has not yet told to Violet. And hopefully we're going to find that out in the next book because I think
I hope so too.
it's going to be very, very interesting. So, yeah, yeah. So anyway, what were some other things? So just Papa Sorrengail said, I know you'll make the right decision when the time comes, as we discussed. And how did he know that she received the note with the book in the spine? I've already discussed that one. I think it's really evident that Violet was never meant to be a scribe. This is just my general
I
thought.
agree.
Uh,
Yeah, I
she
agree.
was. They discussed that she was forever climbing trees and getting injured. She was forever having to go and get mended. She always had an adventurous spirit. And it was just that her
Mhm.
body let her down, that she was very intelligent, that they naturally sent her to the scribes. But I think what we realize, especially now going back and reflecting, rereading the book, you can really see that Violet was actually always meant to be a dragon rider. And it was actually almost like her mum almost realized that and was like,
Knew it.
"No,
Yeah.
you've got the heart of a writer, and you actually need to be that."
Mhm.
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 Um, so and then I guess just some of my final questions I had was Nolan, the mender that has mended her so many times, why is he so bad when his wife is so nice? Like at the beginning of Fourth Wing, like he comes in and he has this really loving moment with his wife and he's like, Violet, why are you injured? You know, always mend you and stuff. And he mends her and he's so nice. And then I'm just like, wait, I know later on he becomes so bad in Iron Flame. And now I'm just confused because I felt like he seemed too nice to be bad. I don't know. Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
Well, I think just, like, coming back to like, we've compared this to Harry Potter a lot. There's, like, a line that I love in Harry Potter in book 5 where Sirius says to Harry, "The world isn't divided into Death Eaters and everyone else." Like,
Mm,
sort of saying there's a lot of nuance in the world, and I think this is something we're gonna learn about Nolan is similar potentially to Violet's mom, he did the wrong things for the right reasons. And I think a lot of the leadership of Navarre are going to have found themselves caught up in this situation where they're doing the wrong things for the
yeah.
right reasons. And I still think that Nolan will have a redemption,
Mhm.
like, but
He was
who
bad.
hard to say for sure, but I know it's like, and did his wife know that he was sort of like up with these bad people? Like, what
I
is going
know,
on?
she's
Like,
very because she's very sweet. She's just a very sweet healer. Like,
yeah,
really, we
and
just
he's
have her
sweet.
being
In Brooklyn, he's so sweet and nice. He's like this sweet, nice old man.
yeah, and then, of course, that then poses the question, are all menders bad? They can remake things. It's very specific. They can remake things, and could this be used for nefarious reasons? I think we have only really scratched the surface. It's a very, very powerful signet. It's a very powerful, very important signet. And obviously it's generally seen as so altruistic that
Yeah,
it's this really good thing that they can help, heal people and things like that.
yeah.
But could it actually
And think of
we
the
know it can be
irony
used for
too,
bad
if, like,
things.
menders are bad, Violet was like when she got her signet, she was like, "I wish I had the signet of mending because it's so good, I wish I could be good, and I'm not gonna be good." And then if it turns out that actually the menders are bad, I love the
Yeah,
irony
yeah,
of that
yeah.
moment.
I mean, I like to think that Brennan's a good character, though. I mean, even him writing the book of Brennan, then he gives to Mira, that then goes to Violet. He seems like
Totally.
a loving, caring person. I mean, I guess it's like all things, you can have a power. It doesn't make you all good or all bad. It's sometimes how you use it and your intentions
Right.
behind it that's going to have the impact. But I guess it's to say that that mending power can obviously very much be used for bad, nefarious things as well as for good things,
Mhm.
as we obviously see
Mhm.
because Naolan brings back fucking Jack Barlow and we still aren't rid with him yet. So it's going to be interesting times ahead. And I do hope we find out a little bit more about the menders and some of the complexities around that. Because as you said, I don't think they're as good as we think. And I think that Violet may learn that along the way, that there is very much a
Yeah,
reason that she did not get that. I think some
totally.
final questions we've already kind of gone into is why are less dragons bonding? Obviously, the theories you gave around that, what people theorized, there's some good reasons as to that they might actually be protecting themselves, or many of them may actually already be controlled by venom. So I hope we get more answers around that. And the last thing I had was around Imogen and her potentially also having this either the same affliction that Violet has. In saying that, Imogen seems a lot more powerful strength wise than Violet. So she doesn't have that. She does know what Violet needs to do in order to be stronger. Like she says, we need to strengthen the muscles around your bones, around your tendons so that they hold it. So she seems to have a really good awareness of what she needs to do, but she obviously doesn't come across as quite as weak as Violet is. So whether that means that
Right.
Violet's affliction was worse than hers and she had it in a milder form, but I certainly think it's interesting that obviously she has hair that's colored so we can't see it, and she has very specifically told Violet you should color your hair. She has pale eyes. She has pale green eyes. Violet also has pale
Mhm.
eyes. And it's just very interesting. Do you have any
Well,
final
and
takes
it's
on anything?
interesting that when Xaden wants to protect her and help her be better, it's Imogen he chooses to help with that. It's Imogen he chooses to help train her. When Liam is a better fighter,
Yeah.
presumably, than her, right? Like, so I think that there is something to this theory, and it is interesting that
Yeah.
it's Imogen that Xaden chooses. And maybe if Imogen has had years and decades lifting weights and training, that could have potentially counteracted some of the effects that she
Yeah.
may have.
She had more of an understanding. I think when we read it, we initially were like, "Oh, just girl power." Like, she's just kind of,
Yeah, girl power.
she's a girl helping another girl. Like,
But
girl
there were
code.
so many other people that Xaden could have had help her. And Imogen tried to kill her in the beginning, so
Mm.
she clearly had some, or maybe not, but, like, he could have picked anyone and he chose her. So
Yeah.
I think that's telling.
Exactly, exactly. And he definitely could have chosen someone like Liam, who would have also been a very good candidate to help teach her, like literally
Yeah.
just being good at everything that he did, apart from maybe wanting to keep her away from the hot blonde. But then he brings him in anyway, and they end up becoming besties in the scribes
Yeah.
and all that. So yeah, it's very interesting. Anyway, that is really most of what I have to deliver today. That is
Perfect. Yeah.
awesome. Those are my summaries. Those are my theories. Those are the questions I've been left with. Of course, I only have so many answers because we're not going to get them until we get ONYX Storm. Do you have any final thoughts or questions or theories that I have not brought up today?
No, I think we'll have a lot more questions when we do the Iron Flame episode, a lot more
Mhm.
theories on the Iron Flame episode, but it's just good to get that refresher, honestly. Even like as I'm prepping now for the Iron Flame episode, and like I'm going to keep an eye out for that chest, I'm going to keep an eye
Yeah,
out for
that's
anything that, like, I just may have forgotten when I read Iron Flame the first time. So,
yeah, yeah. And look, I won't lie, there are a couple other moments came up but I didn't go back and recheck them. Like there was, I think it was Imogen, but she had a additional patch on her, a green
mhm.
one with, and they didn't know what it was. And then Violet starts going into, oh, my favorite one is this and that, but didn't know what this particular patch actually meant. And I don't think we ever found out. I think it was a green patch with two black like logos on it or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But it's like there were so many little moments, but I honestly could not catch every single one because I would have to do an even deeper dive than the 10 reads I've already done. But hopefully, this gives you just a good summary overview, a few little questions that you can take away and go and look at these things yourselves and see if you can draw anything from these extra little Easter eggs and tidbits. And hopefully, it will help add to getting ONYX Storm and all the information we're going to get from that. I'm just super excited. And I can't wait now to get into Iron Flame, which I've not read nearly as many times.
No, me
I
neither.
feel like I've given you the much harder task because Wing is shorter and Iron Flame is longer. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to bring it to you.
no,
Well, thank you so much for the summary. It was very
thank
helpful for me. So hopefully it was
No
helpful for others.
problem at all. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've got any thoughts, any ideas about these theories or questions, please post them in the comments and let us know if you like this episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time with our Iron Flame update. Okay, bye.
Yes, bye.